Hey, hi, hello, friend. So today we continue our conversation with Kadee Sloan. We talk more about how scheduling sex can keep the relationship alive, being open to talking about sex, and so much more. So without further ado, here's part 2. Welcome to season 7 of the Queer Consciousness podcast. I'm Kit Sargent, and my pronouns are they, them.
And I'm Jess Grace Garcia, and my pronouns are they, them. We're just humans wanting to share the lived experience of other humans.
This season, we're talking about all things sex. We want to have deep, heart-led conversations as we unpack what sex means to us and why it's so important to talk about it.
This is a season of unlearning, relearning, and sharing about a topic that is still considered taboo.
Because at the end of the day, we are all spiritual, sexual beings having a human experience, walking each other home.
But with the remote sex, and somebody else controlling like the toy that you're holding or whatever, that brings us to like, what is the definition of sex, and how it changes? Because 20 years ago, I would have said like, well, of course you have to have sex. You have to be physically with someone else, but you really don't.
Yeah, not anymore.
I think it's helpful for people who, like you just said, like someone who's trying to bridge that gap of figuring out where they feel safe. And then also ADHD is a thing. Jana has said to me before, sometimes when we have sex at night, it's really difficult because my meds have worn off, and I'm struggling to stay in it, and that's a hard thing as a partner to hear, no matter what the impacting factors are, right? Because you think well, aren't I good enough to stay in it? And that's really not a good place to be. It's okay to have that fleeting thought, but then there's that next step that's like, okay, I hear you. What can we do to help you stay in it? You're right. We don't always have to have sex at night. Why do we get into this pattern?
Yeah.
What else can we change to help shift it up?
I have to talk to my clients about that a lot, like couples, because a lot of times one couple would prefer to have sex at night and the other one would prefer to have sex in the mornings. And there's usually a window of opportunity where we're the most aroused.
Yes.
And so when I talk to couples, I'm like, okay, when are you the most aroused? When do you feel like having sex? And, it'll be different for the different people in the relationship, and we have to figure that out.
Yeah, I love that. Can you talk more about that? I want to hear more about that process.
There's also desire discrepancy that we call it when one person wants to have sex more than the other. With couples, we call it desire discrepancy. There's always
I've never heard that before. That's super, super useful. I'm going to write that down.
Yeah, there's these terms that we use that sound so just dry, but it really just means one person wants to have sex more than the other. And so, that's with, straight couples and queer couples. A lot of times, the word lesbian bed death, which I don't really like that term at all because it also happens to straight people too. They just call it roommate syndrome. So it happens with straight couples too. It happens a lot with straight couples, but when it comes to the window of time when we feel more aroused, it just goes back to some people are night owls.
Yeah.
And like to stay up late and or have a lot of energy at night. And then some people really are morning people. They're just morning, just wake up happy and have energy. And it can be tricky when those types of people get together, and they'll have to find a time that works best for both of them. If somebody's a morning person, it's okay, they're going to have to compromise.
That's right.
Okay, when can the two of you compromise on a time to have sex when it's good for both of you? And they might be saying well, maybe Saturdays around 11 or something in the morning would, so both of your brains are awake and.
Well, and then you have to get over the thought of it's not sexy to schedule sex.
Yeah, the stigma around it.
I feel like a lot of people have to get over that hump as well because if you go a long time without having that sort of connection, and that connection is important to your relationship, which isn't true for everyone, but I think it is it's often a reset for couples or for relationships, and I think that stigma of but how am I supposed to get into it?
Yeah.
Am I supposed to get into it if we plan and we know? Or also, what if I get so anxious about it that it doesn't work because we're leading up to this moment too much, you know?
Mhm.
I found that to be true for my wife Erica, just because
Mhm.
it was true for events. Like I would tell her I found the sweet spot for like events that we were planning to do together.
Yeah.
Like, well, because she's also chronically ill, so there's like a pain,
Mm.
a pain. Like who knows
Yeah.
where her pain tolerance is at that moment. But we might be saying like, okay, I'm gonna let her know that we're putting it on the schedule 2 weeks in advance, even though we know about it like months in advance. Put it on the schedule. We won't remind her of it during those 2 weeks until like a few days beforehand. We might say like, hey, just a reminder that event's happening that we're gonna go to, as long as you still feel up to it. But like we had to find that sweet spot because it used to be that I'd be like, oh my God, I'm so excited for this. Like we're gonna do this thing together. And that's me. I love hearing the excitement about it. I love hearing, but that would just get her really anxious. And because she would be worried she wasn't gonna be able to deliver whatever it was that I wanted. Sometimes that was a sexy experience. Sometimes that was just showing up and being able to be present, right? One of the questions that our officiant asked us when we got married to Jana, and kind of redid our vows basically, they said to us like, what are memories that you guys have together that are really special, right? And she struggled for weeks to answer that question. And part of that was because there was memories that she knew I might answer, which are like kind of your more classic, like our anniversary at Niagara Falls or this birthday trip kind of thing. But for her, all of those things were anxiety inducing as hell and really, really painful. And so she was compromising by being there for me for those moments, because those moments are important for me. But her most favorite moments, she was like, they're this. It's me coming up to you while you're doing the dishes and being thankful that you're doing the dishes and putting my arms around you. It's us sitting here watching this series and just laughing and having these moments. It's me info dumping at you for 45 minutes about this new book series that I just read. It's those moments. It's the I was sick and you took care of me moments. It's like, and I said, those are my favorite moments too. Like, I know you think that my favorite moment was to do, this trip or this whatever, but I'm also highly aware that you're in pain and highly aware that you're doing this to compromise to be there for me. And I loved that moment to an extent, but I also deeply love it when you're not in pain. And when we have like these special moments. And for us, sex got to become a joyful moment again when Jana joined. Because she got to the point finally a year into that relationship where she said, I'm actually in pain. If you guys can finish for each other, that would be really great. But I'm so thankful that you guys were able to focus on me for a little bit, but now I'm done. And I remember almost wanting to burst into tears. I'm trying right now.
That's really beautiful. Yeah.
Because it meant that she was no longer holding this weight that said, I need to take care of Jess. And I need to meet her. I need to meet them. So funny when I misgender myself. I need to meet them halfway. And like more than halfway for me. It feels like I'm going way to the extent of my level, right? Of what I can handle. And now I get to find what is good for me. And they're being taken care of, and we can also meet at a more equal playing field place. And it's been the best gift out of, like one of the best gifts out of kind of going through that hard season of discovering what was right for all of us. I don't want to do it again, but I also know how essential it was. Because now, so the three of us have sex maybe a few times a year together, but those times are awesome, amazing, incredible.
Yeah.
Because we're all fully in it and we want to be there. And we're not in it to meet just to meet the other person's expectation or whatever, you know, or to make the other person happy. And I think compromise is super, super essential, and it happens in all kinds of ways, you know. And the way that we went is probably one of the hardest ways you can go to find compromise. But it also, it allowed me to let go and like have, like I had stopped having a certain kind of orgasm and a certain kind of pleasure because I could not let Erica endure that amount of pain to get there. And so now that I'm not thinking about Erica's pain and not trying to manage 5 different things at the same time in order to help her get to a place, I can just think about me sometimes. I've discovered new things.
Yeah,
and
I bet.
also the anxiety around, I don't know that I've talked about it on here too much, but I had a real fear of like, and I still do, like my purity culture trauma thing was just penises. Like in general, like that could get me pregnant, I think might have happened to turn into like a physical manifestation of things don't go inside me. You know, and so I only ever experienced external orgasms for the longest time. And then it was with, you know, like every now and then I would feel relaxed enough that we could maybe go there and it would be a good experience. But then eventually my body would kind of have like a anxious experience and we would say no. And then I had a little bit of a medical experience of trauma through having something inside me. And so I, again, went through this like cycle of like, I can't do this. And because we didn't have sex all that often, Erica and I, for a while, a lot of anxiety would build up to that moment, and I would be really focused on just helping her get somewhere. And so by the time it was time for me, it was just like, no, let's take care of it quickly. I'm good. I'm like, I'm so happy we got you there. And so when Jana and I started having sex, she kind of just went for it, and she had never really been with an AFAB person. And we hadn't had like a full conversation about the fact that I was like not ready. And I was like, whoa, that was good. That was a lot. That was fun. Whoa. Okay. Was that a fluke? Can we keep trying that? And yeah, eventually I got triggered and we had to figure out, you know, like what that looks like and how we respond to it and how she handles it. But now it's like, I'm in a new era. Like it's been like a couple of years of me just like discovering what it's like to have like internal orgasms and how many times I can have them and like all of that. And it's like, this is cool. Like, no wonder so many people are like, yeah, but a woman's orgasm. Like, female orgasm though. Like, like, you know, like I hear comedians talk about that all the time. And then like, I got to watch it. Obviously I would give people like orgasms, but like getting to experience it myself on an internal and external at the same time, or just internal, like all of that was stuff I hadn't gotten to explore. And it's cool to be like in your mid 30s. Now I'm 38, but like to be in my mid 30s and to like realize like, whoa, this is what I've been missing.
Yeah, and AFAB people are able to have multiple orgasms, you know? And that's amazing. That's why, you know, like a lot of times if two lesbians get together and they're just having sex for the first time, they'll just stay up all night, you know, and there's like multiple orgasms and it's just like, it's great.
That's gotta be, you're in your 20s though. You gotta have the energy for that shit. Like that.
Yeah. But I ended up marrying my second wife is a gynecologist. And so, you know, just talking openly about sex and
body parts
in general, you know, is just a new thing. And, you know, I'm trying to think. Yeah. For the first year, we would be having conversations and I'd say something about, you know, vagina or something. She would correct me and say, it's vulva. It's vulva. Because it's like, I didn't really understand like the outs. Even as a woman, I didn't understand like the outside. That's not the vagina. That is the vulva.
Yep.
And the inside that is the vagina. And I
feel like
finally started changing my language around it. But
oh, I love that. Yeah, no, my wife was a maternity and women's health nurse for 10 years before she was an NICU nurse. And so I understand that exact same experience of being like corrected and learning how to reference to it correctly. But also as a trans person who is trans mask and non-binary, sometimes it's like, I don't want to call that my clit.
Yeah,
I don't want to, like, and I don't know what I want to call it. Can we try a few other things? Because at sometimes it feels more like, and I hope this doesn't offend you to use these kinds of language, but like sometimes I'm like, this is my dick right now in this moment. But also please don't reference to it that way any other time. Like, and that's why I really enjoy external versus internal sometimes, just because like to describe it in context of conversation with people, but in that sexy moment, I don't always know. And like the truth is that because I'm so non-binary down the center, I'm sometimes like, okay, now I'm very mask, top leaning right now, or my femme side is coming out, and normally, and Jana is so in tune with that in terms of feeling me, and that's because she's pan, and previously had been with AMAB folks, one of which was trans woman, and just understands like that spectrum of experience, and is also considers herself, on the non-binary femme spectrum. And so she gets it. And I love that. And Erica gets it too, but in a different way. She's more tactile in some of her ways of exchanging. And she's also identify, like, she doesn't really like to say that she's a lesbian, but I would say like in a lot of ways that she's just very like queer woman oriented and has dated all kinds of women. And so that was a big transition for us as well. Like as I kind of came into my gender queerness, like even now, like my beard can sometimes be a overstimulating experience for Erica. And I have to distinguish that experience of just overstimulating texture versus like, oh, do you not like my beard? She's no, aesthetically, I can't imagine you without a beard. You're so you look so good with a beard. You look so good. But sometimes it's scratchy on my face, kind of thing. But yeah, no, I love hearing when you said couples who know how to talk about sex have the best sex, because I am just a verbal processor about everything. And so like my sex tends to be really, really comfy with, does this work? It's not working. Okay, let's try something else. Are you okay with this?
Exactly.
And yet both of my partners can tend to go nonverbal when we get to that point, and we've had to find that middle ground of like, is this, are we saying yes? Are we, like, is this working? And how to communicate the yeses and the nos or the maybes without always having words to back us up,
And I like that you mentioned like having, different names for your body parts, because that's what something I'll ask my clients is like, what do you like to call your parts? Because like a lot of times the words that we have been taught to use are not the words that we feel connected with.
Yep.
And so people will come up with like, names for their parts, and that's great.
I think it's also funny to hear how different partners like experience each other's versions of those words. Like my wife Erica loved to use the word tits a lot, and I did not. And now I've just gotten used to it kind of being a vocal stim thing that she likes to do, or sometimes, but I just kind of created a boundary of like, yeah, but let's not reference to my chest that way. I like to use the word chest because it feels down the center. Is that nipples is fine. Everyone has nipples. Well, not everyone. Some awesome trans folks say, nah, I don't need them. But yeah, like, nipples feels down the center, but, yeah, it's so funny how Maybe someone might go, ooh, to the word vagina. Even
Right.
hearing it in a podcast, they might go, ooh,
Mhm.
gross.
Mhm.
We like in different generations use different terminology sometimes to reference to certain areas too, and kind of leaving space for that,
Yeah, and the other thing you mentioned earlier was, I think, Kid, it was you that said, scheduled sex is sometimes not sexy. That doesn't feel sexy. Well, there's workarounds for that. A lot of times we'll tell people you don't have to schedule it like on a schedule because that can build some anxiety around that and feel like pressure. But you can have like a window of opportunity where like, okay, we should probably try this on Saturday or Sunday between 11 and 1 or something. One of those times in there. And then what I do with couples is I make them or ask them to take turns initiating. So you're not just like meeting in the bedroom going, okay, now it's time. It's like that's terrible. Who wants that? But it's more of then I teach couples how to like flirt with each other beforehand and how to initiate so that there's some idea of you kind of know when it might be, but it's not, it doesn't feel like it's scheduled.
You just talking about that, the only thing that I'm seeing in my head right now is the scene from Forgetting Sarah Marshall when Kristen Bell's character walks in, Sarah, and she walks into the house and Jason Segel is just standing there completely naked, just whipping his stick back and forth, being like, "You wanna go?"
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I can't see Jason Segel as being sexy, even though I love watching him in things. Anytime that there's something sexual involved with him, I'm like, no, it's just not clicking for me. Yeah,
just a big old oaf.
yeah.
But that's
Big
the thing is
goofy
like
man.
sometimes that is sometimes what people's like definition of like initiation is you're like, I'm standing here naked.
Yeah,
waiting
I'm
for my
naked.
dick.
I'm ready. Let's go.
And you're like,
yeah.
I'm sorry. You
Yeah.
expect me to be turned on by you doing the helicopter with your member.
That's like Erica flashing me every day.
Okay.
Why aren't you turned on right now? I'm like, babe, like you're just doing it for a reaction. Like what?
Mhm.
Like nudity isn't my thing. Like put clothes on. Let's
You're doing
work
this
up to
because
it.
you know for a fact that while yes, I do like them, you're not doing it for the sexual attention. You're just doing it for attention that just happens to be sexual.
I'm like, but is something gonna happen? And she's like, no. And I'm like,
Then you can't do
That's
that.
funny.
No, that's not how this works. When I say you need to flirt with me, it's not you just all of a sudden showing up naked in front of
You're
you going,
right.
I'm flirting.
that's the most autistic thing to do, though.
It is, yeah.
But it so is.
Hi, friend. The cool thing that I love about the Patreon is we get to do exclusive things, like Jess and I having a recap conversation after the guest left where we talk about our takeaways. So if you want to go to patreon.com/queer consciousness podcast and not only hear our recap of the conversation immediately after, but also see what else we are going to do to build community around the podcast, go check it out. Now, back to the conversation.
I was going to ask for an example of you teaching someone to flirt.
Teaching people to flirt? Yeah. Okay, so if a couple knows they're supposed to have sex, like they know they're going to start prioritizing sex more, and we'll make sure that, let's say they decide they're going to have sex once a week. And that's another thing is like couples have to compromise on how often they're going to have sex, because one person might want to have sex 3 times a week and the other wants it once a month.
Exactly.
So like, okay, well, we'll talk in a session and say, what can you compromise on? Like, what's acceptable to both of you? And they're okay, well, once a week. And then we decide like the window when they desire sex the most. We'll figure out when they can compromise to have sex. And then as far as like flirting, I think it would start the day before.
Mm-hmm.
It starts with like the build up to that, and like, hey, I can't wait till tomorrow. This is what I want to do to you, and whatever word somebody might use, or you can say it, in person too, just to like first of all, it's like reminding them that this thing is going to happen. I remember that we're going to do this we're going to be having sex. And then actually just having some real intention behind it, behind the sex, and preparing for it and making it fun or special. And so you can flirt about that. Be like, this is what I'm going to, I'd
Well,
say
sometimes it's doing something sexy, I think, like that the other person finds sexy, like doing the dishes.
yeah,
like-
that's for sure.
Or cleaning the house, like cleaning
Uh-huh.
something. Like, I know
Yeah.
that sounds really
Well, but do
basic,
you know
but it's very
why?
adulting.
Like,
No,
have
yeah.
you read Emily Nagoski's "Come as You Are"? Have y'all read "Come as You Are"?
No,
I
that's
haven't read it,
yeah.
but I have
I
listened.
think it's on my Audible list. Let me double check.
But possibly. I'm like, I haven't read it. I haven't listened to it. I have listened to a few of her podcasts that she guested on where she was talking about it. So I understand the premise of the book, but I haven't indulged in it. And this is probably has everything to do with the fact that I am asexual, where it's like, okay, it would definitely be one of those things where if I were to get into a relationship, there would be a lot of compromisation on my end because I'm like, I'm good if we have sex like twice a year.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Emily Nagoski, I think it's recommended reading for every person,
I just bought it on
no
Audible,
matter what
so we're
gender,
good.
because Emily talks about how with sexual desire, sometimes it's spontaneous. Like some people are just naturally horny. Like the wind blows. About 80% of men have spontaneous arousal.
A premenopausal Jess was that way.
Right.
Now,
It's like the wind blows. Nothing really has to happen. You just want it.
Yeah.
Now,
I just had a memory of something, and now I'm
yeah,
into
exactly.
It. Yeah.
Now, for AFAB people, about 80% of AFAB people have the type of arousal where it has to be prompted by something. It doesn't just happen. It has to be prompted by something. Something has to we have to see something or be touched in a certain way before the arousal kicks in. And so with the way Emily describes it in her book is like when the dishes are done and the house is clean, then a person who, an AFAB person, the desire is going to be more likely to kick in because there's not that, I have something to do, there's something that needs to be done. Like we say, those are the breaks. And so there's a lot of things in the world that cause like us to have the brakes on when it comes to desire. And a messy house is one of those.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
That makes so much sense to me. As someone who kind of edges on that middle ground of like, sometimes the wind can blow and I'm in it, but sometimes I really need some like inspiration to get there. And like, I understand both of those experiences like a lot, but it's important. It's important to, it's like, it's interesting how often like I've counseled straight passing couples. They're both, maybe one of them is queer, both of them are queer, but to the world and to their own like formula, they're experiencing kind of a straight experience, and it's so interesting how those two things are so disconnected, and yet I can relate to realizing, oh shit, all I had to do was clean the house. Like, oh shit, all I had to do was pick up the things from the pharmacy and like make dinner. Like, whatever the list of things that needs to be done, what can I do? And sometimes it's the needs to be done list, and sometimes it's just your partner wants to feel cared for.
Yeah.
And not like, I just want something from you kind of energy.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's really,
and so like, it's just, I don't know. It's interesting. For one of the things Jana and I discovered probably a year into our relationship was like, the spontaneity thing that you were talking about, like her needing some diversity in more often than I did in our sexual life. And part of that was like just spontaneous, whether it was that we had a spontaneous day or spontaneous sex. But part of that was just because she hadn't had a long-term relationship as long as she was having with me. And so whereas I was used to long-term relationships and finding a
Yeah.
pattern, finding a rhythm. And
Mm.
so we just had to find, like, I was like, I remember I'm quick enough to and feel comfortable enough saying, you seem less interested recently. Like, what do you think? Have you thought about it? Do you know what might be going on? And sometimes she has, and sometimes, she was still getting used to talking about that kind of thing, especially a year in. And I was like, do you think it might be this? Do you think it might be this? And one of the things that helped was I had a friend who was very ADHD, who had basically accidentally broke up with their boyfriend because they thought that um they were experiencing like a dissatisfaction in their relationship, when really they were just needing some needing some change, needing some like diversity in their intimacy and in their exchange. And like a week after breaking up with their boyfriend, they were like, I just made the biggest mistake ever. Like, what did I do? Like, I miss him so
Wow.
much. I don't know what I
Wow.
just did. And then
Mm.
it was a discovery of, I'm unmedicated right now.
Oh.
I needed a reason for this dissatisfaction of, my brain
Mhm.
getting like its dopamine. And
Yeah.
it wasn't the same as the beginning of the relationship. Like, first 3 months, it's exciting, it's this, it's that, like
Yeah.
there's more dopamine to be had. And so when I mentioned that to her, because she was talking about, because we were poly, and so she was talking about other connections that she missed and things like that. I was like, can you find joy in the stillness, in the certainty? Can you
Mhm.
find joy in the comfort of this works? This, you don't have to keep trying hard. Like, and I will also try to find moments for spontaneity and like excitement and things like that.
Yeah.
And I was really, I'm thankful for my own reflectiveness, my own, coaching abilities, because I was able to think of those, like, that moment where so many other people that I've, either counseled or friends that I've had these conversations with, they're just like, oh my God, you just opened something up for me that I never even considered. And I'm like, no, dude, I get it.
Mhm.
Like, I get it. You're not alone. Don't worry about it. But it helped us a lot. I'm really glad we figured it out early on.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I love working with couples, and usually after about year 5, people's sex lives will start to change a lot. That's there's actually some research around this, and we can see like after about year 5, people will start to have a lot less sex or just not want it as much, and so it it has to be more intentional. You just have to say like, this is important. It's almost like, so I ask people, have you ever had a sexual experience with your partner, with your long-term partner, and afterwards you wish you hadn't had it, or are you glad that you did it? And 95% of the time, people say like, no, I'm usually, even if I didn't want to at first, like after it's over, I'm really glad that I did it and I felt more connected with them. And so that just shows me that there's a lot of times where we have, it's like going to the gym, like we don't want to do it, but once we do it, we're glad we did it and we know it's good for us. And sometimes we just have to start prioritizing sex in the relationship and making time for it, even if we don't want to, because it keeps us connected, like the oxytocin, and it just helps with bonding. And a lot of times if somebody doesn't want to have sex with their partner and they say they don't really, they're not really into it, and then I'll ask the question, well, what type of sex are you having that you're not really into? Because stop having that sex, like, and do something else. Like, figure out
Right.
like what sex you do want to be having that is going to make you want to have it. And a lot of this for people is just exploration, like, because a lot of us don't really know what we like and don't like. People haven't been taught that it's okay to explore their bodies and, try different things. And so it's, once people figure that out, they want to have more sex because they know what type of sex they want to have.
Getting comfortable with any sort of continued education, continued learning is, I think, the first step to a happier life. And because I just think about the kinds of people that I surround myself with, the kinds of people that love to read, or they love to listen to podcasts. They love to learn, and they're always growing. They're always like, there's core person there, right? Is like the same core person, but they're growing and they're changing, and they're comfortable with saying, yeah, I don't believe that anymore. They're comfortable with shifts. And I think like the kinds of people that can be comfortable with knowing that maybe they made a mistake in the past, but they've learned from it and they're growing, those are the kinds of people that were going to have great sex, because they're comfortable with saying, that didn't work for me. Why didn't that work for me? Or that didn't work for them. Why didn't that work for them? And it's not an attack on your culture, your traditions, your pride anymore.
Or the fact that, like, when that happens, a lot of times people think, oh, so I'm just bad at sex.
Exactly.
Right.
And it's just not true. I mean, like, whatever you define as sex, which I love about this season, like, it might not be what anyone else considers sex, but that's the thing that turns you on, and that's the thing that gets your brain lit up. Like, my wife, who's gray ace, loves smut. Loves it. And the smut that she likes is the kind of sex that we don't have. So what do we need to do? Right? To get in the middle there. And one of the things we've tossed around, and sometimes it just comes down to energy and finding the right people, that I've just been putting out into the world, is finding a dominatrix. Someone who can like, okay, education, voyeuristic opportunity to just watch, and she can experience
That's a great idea.
experience, right? And it'll be my first time, like, sharing her in that sort of way, but at the same time, I feel, at least I think, I feel very open to it. And I've talked about it openly enough because I'm trying to get myself probably also comfortable with it whenever we finally do it, because that, I think, will open up doors for us to explore, and for me to feel safer about, oh, okay, this is what works for you. Because yeah, my partner's excitement is my excitement, for sure. Like, at least for me, that works for me. I get really excited by my partners being excited. And so that's definitely, like, I'm really excited to continue to grow and learn and explore, even if I'm, at least right now, a current version of Jess isn't necessarily super kinky or super into BDSM, but it doesn't mean that I can't get into the headspace that is, but you're really into this. And I'm seeing how into this you are, and excited for you. She gave us homework, and I still have yet to read the book, but it's because it's not an audiobook, and I'm really bad at reading. The ADHD brain doesn't want to, like, sit down and read a book.
The only thing that I could say is, I'm like, you and Jana could do this, and then Jana could just read it to you.
We've discussed that, like, if I was reading it and pretending like I was doing, like, a podcast or something, I was considering, like, offering to the author, like, that, like, what if I read your book and record it, but anyway, that there's a book that's just everything that she might want. She's like, this is your homework. And it's been my homework for like over a year.
Cool.
Is to read this book, and she bought it for me for Christmas. So it was like one of those things where it's like, okay, you got the book, let's do this. And then I was going to take it with me on a trip, because it's the only time I might physically read a book is, like, on a plane. And she was like, no, I'm not there. What if you get inspired?
Right.
And I was like, okay, you have a good point. Like,
Fair. Very fair.
But it might take me longer to read this then. But I'm excited because it's like a curvy butch human who is like that. I think that one is autistic, and then the partner is ADHD, and they're both
Mm-hmm.
Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
Um and so it's got like a religiosity kind of
Yeah.
experience to it as well. And it's very kinky. And so I'm like, okay, I will read it. I will read it. It will be. I'm glad she's had some grace on my timing. But it's part of my homework, and
Yeah,
I
that's
think
great.
that stuff's super important because, like you said, like all of us have different experiences, and we learn what we like, and we continue to learn. And I think as a genderqueer person, as a queer person, um, I'm very comfortable with that. Like I've come from so many different intersections. I've
Mm-hmm.
always been comfortable with change. It's actually a lack of change that makes me uncomfortable, so I'm hyper aware of it quickly. Um, but that like discovering myself on a regular basis is such a healthy, good thing because it makes me really open to new discoveries.
For sure. That's amazing. I love that. Thank you, Jess,
Yeah.
for also sharing all of that. I know that sometimes that can be a little difficult. But I know that you're
I'm
also an
fortunate to have
incredibly
spouses that
open.
are used to it.
Yeah, that's definitely a big help is that you have the support that you need to be able to say like I can talk about this stuff openly and share it with a lot of other people and my spouses
Mm-hmm.
are going to be okay that we do this.
My wife
Yeah.
has gotten to the point where she just says, I don't want to hear it. Like, I don't want to listen to the podcast, but I'm glad that other people are hearing it. They need to hear
Well,
it.
yeah, and the more people hear these open discussions about sex and sexuality and sexual experiences, the more people can have just less shame around it and learn to talk about it with their partners too. And that's really what we need to be doing. Like sexual health is very important. And, just Emily Nagoski talks about it a lot, like how we've got to like question everything we ever learned about sex and our bodies and just deconstruct that, and that's where I know I heard y'all talk about heated rivalry on, and how that's just opened people's minds so much. And yeah, it's great that I'm so happy that I just love that show so much. And I hope everybody will watch it because it showed people, a side of the gay sexual experience that the average person does not get to see.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
being open minded and just seeing their love for such a great show. Yeah, I just wish that we could have more shows like that with different types of like queer couples.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm excited to continue to see. Like, I've seen a few articles of like some of the queer media that's coming out in this year, and I'm just I'm really I'm gonna try, and I know like as we're kind of separating from capitalistic like streaming services and things like that, from people that are putting money where I don't want that money going. I'm like, what else could I? There's so many other streaming services that are queer oriented or like ways to subscribe and support artists and indie
Mm-hmm.
artists that are making the stuff we want to see. But it is
Mm-hmm.
really great when something like Heated Rivalry gets on like a huge platform because they started on a queer streaming platform.
Mm-hmm.
And because they did so well,
Oh.
they said someone picked, HBO, was it HBO Max or something, picked it
Mhm.
up, and
Yeah.
then and that's why. But it started on like a
Hmm.
small indie
Oh wow.
Canadian, label. But Canada does great. Canada is
Yeah.
so good about that stuff. But I agree with you. Yeah. I liked that he was. I wish they had said it, but I think they probably just didn't know because, he was like the son of immigrant parents, I think, but like he was very autistic coded. And
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he
it
was.
very
Yeah.
much implied
Yeah.
that, and I loved that representation as he like kind of sorted through like his own processing, with his
Mm-hmm.
body, and yet also the little elements of like how well he knew himself in things
Mm-hmm.
that like
Mm-hmm.
when people write autistic characters, but they aren't autistic themselves, or they don't have a community of
Mm-hmm.
neurodivergence around them, and they try to like write them, and it's like, oh god, that's not good. I loved that aspect. That was just kind of like this little aspect of so many autistic people that I've met who are extremely socially aware and extremely like empathetic and extremely aware of themselves and their own bodies, which is not what society thinks
Mm-hmm.
about autistic people.
Right. So true.
That's
And
the
so
thing is, a lot of times we're so aware, but we are terrible at expressing it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you have
Yes.
no idea. And it's like, no, I'm hyper aware. That is the problem, to the point of overstimulation. And now I'm in shutdown mode because I want to
Right.
say exactly what I am feeling, and I have no words.
Yep. That's what I love about this podcast, because people get to meet a part of you, Kit, that is so real and intimate. You know,
Mhm.
like when you came out to LA and we did
Mhm.
my wedding stuff, that was when I finally got to see you in an element that was not necessarily your most comfortable element,
Fair.
which is more of who you are every day.
Yes.
Like the way you would describe like some of your interactions with people, I'm like, I don't get it, because you're so comfy in all of these other interactions. But then I finally got to see like you interact with, the random rental guy who I was like clicking with, right?
Oh, yeah,
Mhm.
you're having a great conversation, and I didn't make a sound.
Oh gosh.
Nope,
It
not a
was,
sound, not a peep.
yeah, and I got to see that version that most of the world sees of, like in everyday life, gets to sees of Kit, and yet I realize like how beautiful it is that we, either listeners, producers, guests, get to experience of you, and I think that's
Mhm.
awesome.
True.
Well, I'm
But
gonna have to take off here, but you're both just like such sweet souls, and I really enjoyed this conversation.
yeah, Katie, I'm so thankful you came, and I've really enjoyed it. It opened up some things for me that I'll be reflecting on, and I think that's the beauty of therapists. Like
Mm-hmm.
really, really awesome, well-educated, like people who are willing to grow and learn from their clients. Like 50% of my friends are therapists. And so
Oh
like
yeah.
in my neck of the woods, for some reason, a lot of them are. And yeah, I'm glad to add you to that list.
Yeah. Thank you.
Before you pop off, we do have
yeah.
a surprise question.
Okay.
And it just literally just a single sentence
Yeah, let's go.
the answer for it. So, knowing what you know now, having lived the life that you have lived, if you could go back to your 21-year-old self and give her one single piece of advice about sex, what would it be?
Ooh, okay. I would just say to like have more sexual experience and consensual sexual experiences. Like
About sex? Have
explore
more.
that more. Yeah, have
Yeah,
more have
absolutely.
more sex
Have
with
more
different
sex, yeah.
people as long as it's consensual and safe. Like
Absolutely.
just don't, don't constrict yourself into like a box or anything. Just like really have fun with it. It's doesn't have to be anything to be ashamed of. That's what I would tell my 21-year-old self.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Amazing. Kadee, thank you so very much for coming on and having this fantastic conversation with us. Anytime you want to come back and have another one, by all means, open invitation.
Yeah, and if anybody like has any questions, you can like look up my website at pridetherapy.com. And like I love to do like short YouTube videos answering people's questions about especially I really enjoy doing couples work. So if you're in a situation, in a relationship, and you have some questions about like what to do about your relationship, shoot me an email and I can answer it like with a YouTube video or something.
Right.
Are you only licensed in North Carolina?
What's that?
Are you only licensed in North
Yeah.
Carolina?
Mhm.
If you're in North Carolina.
yeah, you can hit. Yeah.
We'll definitely make sure to put that in the show notes, as well as the link to your YouTube channel. That way people can go check out and see if a question that they have might have already been answered by you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
sure.
you wrote a book
Oh
recently,
yeah,
didn't you?
Lesbian Dating Survival Guide. It's I spent about a year and a half doodling charts. It's all hand drawn. It's got chapters like U-Haul University and lesbian limerence. There's a little chapter on limerence. It's just fun. There's flannel flirting 101.
I love
Hilarious.
this.
I love that. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
it's just I had a really good time with it, and like I said, it's mostly hand drawn. It's not AI, and yeah, it's everything I wish I had known in my 20s that would have helped me to like understand how to date.
Fair enough.
Amazing.
And it's available on my website and TikTok shop and Amazon for those who aren't boycotting Amazon.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Until next time.
This podcast is hosted by me, Kit Sargent, co-hosted and produced by Jess Grace Garcia of Springwood Productions, and the theme music is by Brian Smith of Holy Holy Music Productions. If you could do us a huge favor and please like, follow, comment, share, do all of the things on all of the socials. You could follow the podcast on Instagram @_queer.consciousness for all the latest episodes as well as any other exciting news. When you're listening on Spotify, please leave a 5-star rating and use the comment box for anything you'd like us to talk about. When you're listening to Apple Podcasts, please leave a comment and a 5-star rating. If you'd like to be on the podcast, send a message to queerconsciousnesspod@gmail.com. If you'd like to support the podcast, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/queerconsciousnesspodcast. We are trying to grow as organically as possible, and this helps other like-minded people who want to empower and encourage others on their journey. So until next time, remember to stand in your truth and know that you are worthy, just as you are. Hey friend, just wanted to take a quick second to remind you that if you or someone you know is struggling and don't know where to turn, the trained volunteers at the LGBT National Hotline are here to help. Because sometimes the strongest thing to do is to ask for help. The National Hotline phone number is 888-843-4564. And if you want to check out the other things that they have available for them to help you with, you can check out the lgbthotline.org in order to be able to see all of the services that they offer in order to help our community.